Here's your word for the day from Calvary in Lake Havasu. Visit us on the web at calvaryaz.com.
Hey there, thanks for tuning into Your Word for the Day from Calvary. My name is Robert. You know, as we navigate church, especially if you're new to faith, sometimes we walk in and there's things that we do, practices that we conduct that don't immediately make sense. Whether it's standing and corporate singing and worship, whether it's us spending deep time looking at a book that's quite large and older than any of us, whether it's baptism and what that means, or communion and taking a very small snack in the middle of a service. Sometimes this stuff doesn't make sense, but it actually has incredible rich meaning. So I'm glad that in this moment, I get to do a little teaching on why we do one of those things, and that is communion. Because as we continue to go through the book of Mark in chapter 14 in verses 22 and following, we're going to look at Jesus setting this up, instituting, establishing this practice that we 2,000 years later still continue following his instructions in. But depending on your faith background, it might have different names. It might be communion or Lord's Supper, or if you're from more of a Catholic background, it might be known as the Eucharist. But either way, it comes from this moment. In Mark chapter 14, it says this. It says, as they were eating, he, Jesus, took bread. And after blessing it, he broke it and gave it to them and said, take, this is my body. And he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, and they drank all of it. And he said, this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many. Truly I say to you, I will not drink again of the fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new in the kingdom of God. Now, this event, this moment at the Last Supper where Jesus institutes the Lord's Supper, communion, Eucharist, this is recorded in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And Mark, being the shortest of the Gospels, gives us the shortest account. Luke, the most detailed, the most precise of the Gospel writers, gives us the most detail. He records that Jesus tells them to do this in remembrance of me. He says that this blood is poured out for the forgiveness of sins. He gives more detail there. But there's some background, and you've got different faith backgrounds, maybe different ways to interpret this, because the statement here where he says, this is my body, has had considerable different interpretive approaches throughout the last 20 or 2,000 years of Christendom. And I want to break some of those down. If you've heard some of these terms or heard different perspectives, we started first with the Catholic perspective, which is known as transubstantiation. Big word. All it means is that they hold to a view that those elements, the bread, the juice, or wine, they transform into the actual blood and body of Jesus in the moment that it is being celebrated in a corporate worship setting. If you don't come from a Catholic background, that sounds a bit odd. That's the way they interpreted that statement of this is my body. Now, the Lutheran tradition comes along and modifies that a little bit with a view called consubstantiation. This is a view that it's still bread and juice or bread and wine, depending on the situation, but the actual elements don't change, but yet the essence of Jesus' body and blood are still present alongside the elements of the bread and the juice. At Calvary, we hold to what's known as a memorial view, where we say nothing changes with the elements. It's still cracker or bread and juice. Those don't change, those don't transform, nothing magical happens there. But the significance is found in us pausing and remembering and memorializing the event of Jesus' death and sacrifice for us. Now, that's the view we hold to. There's basis for other ones, but I think the bigger thing to hold to and to observe here is no matter what view churches or individuals hold, the consistent thing is it all points back to what Jesus has done for us. All of them go back to this moment where Jesus says, hey, this is an important moment that you're going to do to remember my death and sacrifice to you. So next time you're at a worship service and you have the opportunity to take communion, my challenge is to do a couple things. One, to look back. Look back at what Jesus has done for you, but also to look back at your sin and to feel the weight and the significance of your sin and disobedience against God, but to also look back at what Jesus has done to bring you forgiveness and hope. Secondly, to express your commitment. God, I want to be more faithful. I want to be obedient. I want to follow you with my life. And third, I think that we have an incredible opportunity when we take communion to look forward. As we think about this moment of Jesus dining with the disciples and establishing the Lord's Supper, we get to, in this day, look forward because his death and sacrifice for us means that one day in heaven, we'll get to dine and break bread with him in person. And that should give us incredible hope and encouragement for the days to come. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope that you, next time you have an opportunity, get to boldly profess and remember Jesus' death for you. We'll see you next time.